Welcome to my PowerPoint on Journey to Ungoro. Of course, we're starting with Druid, and we have a few cards. I'm not going to show every single card of these expansions. It's not how I like to do this because, well, if there's 10 cards, and I can only really show 4 efficiently on the thing, I don't want to do 3 slides per class because it would be lame. But the reason I want to talk about Ungoro today is it's kind of the first modern Hearthstone expansion. It's the first expansion to have 2 legendaries per class, and it's one of the few expansions to release a new tribe. As far as I remember, this is the first new tribe to come out since the game had come out. It was Elementals. They had pirates, mechs, totems, murlocs, and beasts, and dragons in the classic set, and then Elementals came out. Then Quillbore, Naga, Undead, I want to say. Or demons were also in the classic set. I don't think that I missed anything. I think that is correct. So, let's start with Druid. Like most quests from Ungoro, Jungle Giants has been pretty bad. It really hasn't ever been able to, like, be used. I did a whole video on the quest, so I'm not going to get into it right now, but there is that. So, Jungle Giants, it's not really that great. The reward is Barnabas the Stomper, 5-mana 8/8 that reads Battlecry, reduce the cost of all minions in your deck to 0, and then, I mean, that's not a bad effect. There's just, eventually, it feels like there's going to be some way to make that too strong, because if you can just play 4 minions with 5 or more attack really early on and curve into your Barnabas, like, guaranteed, it's probably potentially has the potential in the future, but who knows? It's so much mana cheating that there's just, like, it feels like there's no way that it can't ever be good, you know? Tyrantus was originally a 10 mana 12/12 with elusive. Yep. Tyrantus is one of the worst legendaries ever. It's so bad. Like, they buffed it to be a 14/14 that also has taunt and elusive. Still not great. For a while, for a long time actually, I think it was like for over a year, Tyrantus was bugged to where it didn't have any text. So it was literally a 10 mana 12/12 beast, and that was it. Nothing else about it, which is hilarious that, like, a legendary, it doesn't matter what legendary, that a legendary spent over a year just having no text at all as a bug. Like, how does that ever happen? Living Mana was actually a really strong card for its time. It is, of course, 5 mana, nature spell, that wasn't nature at the time, but transform your mana crystals into 2/2 treants, recover the mana when they die. So if you played it on turn 5, you would get 5 2/2 treants for 5 mana, which was, at the time, very efficient. You would then, go down to 0 mana. On your next turn, you would start at 1 mana, but if you had, Mark of the Lotus on that next turn or something like that, you weren't really that upset. If you know Mark of the Lotus, it's 1 mana spell that just says give all your minions +1/+1. It's from Gadget Zan. But Living Mana did see play in a lot of Token Druid decks in this era of Hearthstone. While it wasn't standard, it was really a pretty good card. They weren't always treants as well, but, with more treant support being printed, they turned the Living Mana into treants. I don't know. Living Mana feels like one of those cards that if they just, like, they buffed it to, like, 3 mana, it might actually see play again. Like, genuinely. I'm not sure how you would make a card like this, like, into a playable card again, but it feels like such a card that, like, has potential, that, like, if it had, like, a big buff on the mana cost, that could make sense in today's game. And it's an interesting card. It is. Spending your mana crystals rather than just your mana itself is really interesting. I think, like, we need to have more cards that are like that. Warlock has cards like that. You have, like, Blast Crystal Potion, which was 4 mana, destroy a minion and a crystal, which obviously, in today's game's terrible, but back when, Siphon Mana was like 6 mana, it kind of made sense, right? But, I don't know. I think that, like, destroying mana crystals as a concept could be very cool. We've had a couple cards that try to do it, but it's never really taken off. Then, lastly, we have Earthen Scales. So, Earthen Scales used to be 1 mana. It's 1 mana, give a friendly minion +1/+1, then gain armor equal to its attack. So, it was in the core set, and so was Naga Giant. And Naga Giant, you would, play as a 0 mana 8/8 because of its effect. It's 20 mana 8/8 costs 1 less for each mana you spent off spells this game. So you would have a 0 mana 8/8, and then you would play Earthen Scales on it, and it would be a 1 mana 9/9 that gave you 9 armor. And then you would play it again. So it'd be a 2 mana 10/10 that gave you 19 armor. And you just... Yeah, it was just really good. It just was really, really strong. And they nerfed it. So they nerfed Earthen Scales because, well, that was too much armor to be gaining for so cheap, right? And then, guess what? Guess what happened? It rotated out of the core set and hasn't been reverted. This is a gigantic fucking nerf to things like Linecracker Druid, which didn't need to be nerfed. Linecracker Druid is a terrible, terrible deck that doesn't function and still doesn't even win some games. So why, like, it didn't need to be nerfed at all. Earthen Scales is just a completely unplayable card now because of this nerf, and it didn't need to be nerfed. It just didn't need it. It did not need this nerf. It's so crazy that it has. It's like, this is a problem with the core set that Blizzard has not addressed, is that some cards get nerfed in the core set and just are not reverted. Bloodsail Deckhand is another example of this. It was a 1 mana 2/2 with Battlecry, reduce the cost of your next weapon by 1. Now it's a 1 mana 2/1. Never reverted. That card is a core set exclusive card too. So it probably won't ever come back to the core set because, as far as I know, they haven't put any cards that were core set exclusive back in the core set. I could be wrong, don't get me wrong, but if once they leave the core set, I don't think they'd come back. So that's not great. What the fuck, Earthen Scales? I mean, what the fuck, Blizzard? Like, this card has been around for 7 years, and then they just, like, nerfed it. I guess it would have been 6 or 5 at the time. Sorry. Then we have Hunter. So, obviously, both Hunter legendaries were terrible. Obviously, it's Hunter. You know, I'll always have terrible legendaries. Let's start with Swamp King Dread first. It was originally 7 mana. It was a 7 mana 9/9. After your opponent plays a minion, attack it. That was it. It was really expensive. It wasn't worth playing at all. Now, it's buffed to 6 mana, and it's actually kind of decent in big Hunter decks. If you are playing a list that is using Vandar, which is pretty good, all things considered, those Vandar lists, you can set your Swamp King Dread to 3 mana, so if you play Vandar on, like, turn 3 with the coin, you can then play King Dread, like Swamp King Dread on turn 4. It's just a giant 9/9 that your opponent has to fucking deal with. Like, they can't really play minions because most minions in today's game, especially in slower decks, have more health than they have attack. So you have to play like 3 or 4 minions to kill Swamp King Dread, and then you just killed 3 or 4 minions for your opponent for free. It's really good when you can get it off in like a Vandar deck, but every other kind of big Hunter doesn't make Swamp King Dread work. It's just not good in those decks. It kind of just acts like a giant Trapdoor Spider, because, I mean, that's what it is, a giant Trapdoor Spider. It's something alright. Maybe if it were 5 mana, maybe, who knows. Then we have the Marsh Queen. So the Marsh Queen is 1 mana quest, play 7 1-cost minions, get reward Queen Carnassa. Queen Carnassa is a 5 mana 8/8 that used to read Battlecry, shuffle 15 Raptors in your deck. Then it was buffed to 5 mana 8/8 with Rush, shuffle 20 Raptors. So before I even tell you what the Raptors do, people genuinely thought that this quest would be broken. Don't ask me how. Because this has been an issue in Hunter for its entire existence, that it doesn't have that good of 1-drops. So, what? If you don't know what the Raptors do, they are 1 mana 3/2s that have Battlecry, draw a card. So at the time, people thought that it would be too easy of a quest to complete for Hunter, and it would be too much card draw for Hunter. Let that sink in for a moment. They thought that shuffling 20 1 mana 3/2s in your deck that drew cards when they were played would give you too much card draw. This was also before the Starving Buzzard revert, when Starving Buzzard was 5 mana. I cannot place any reason why people thought this card would be overpowered, let alone why they thought it would be good. It was horrible. It's one of the worst quests. It's still one of the worst quests. I don't get it. I cannot grasp what people thought that this card would be broken. I cannot. Then, as another card from this expansion that is an actually interesting card, is Crackling Razormaw. obviously Hunter, all our commons and rares are really good. Everything else, ugh. Crackling Razor Maw, 2 mana, 3/2 beast, Battlecry or adapt the friendly beast. At the time, Hunter 1-drops were still not great. You had like Jeweled Macaw as a beast, you had Alley Cat as a beast, and that was fine. You didn't really have that great of options for Razor Maw until Kobolds and Catacombs came out with Dire Mole. It's just 1 mana, 1/3 beast. No text. How fucking based, right? Somehow they've still never done it. Somehow they haven't just printed a 1 mana, 1/3 beast with like a good text. Somehow they still haven't done it. I don't know how. It's so easy. Anyway, adapting was really strong. You could get +1/+1. You could get summon 2 1/1s. You could get Divine Shield. You could get +3 attack. You could get Wind Fury. There are a lot of really good options from Adapt. And Razor Maw, just being on turn 2 was great. It's just a good body, and being able to adapt your 1-drop really did matter. Sometimes you needed Poisonous, sometimes you needed Taunt, sometimes you needed Divine Shield. Adapt was a really strong keyword for its time, and it has been somewhat, like, remade with, like, the bonus effects that they keep adding to cards, where it's, instead of, like, doing, like plus attack, or +1/+1, or whatever, it's just bonus keywords. So, Poisonous, Reborn, Lifesteal, Taunt, Rush, Divine Shield, Wind Fury. I think that's it. Stealth, Elusive. Actually, I think Stealth got removed from the pool. Anyway, the bonus keyword thing is better than Adapt, don't get me wrong, but for its time, Adapt was very strong as a keyword. It just hasn't really held up. It's too random. It's not powerful enough. And then lastly, of the cards that I want to talk about for Hunter, we have Terror Scale Stalker. So it was originally a 3 mana 3/3, if I remember correctly. It wasn't a 3/4. I don't think it was 3/4. But now it's a 2 mana 2/3 with Battlecry, trigger a friendly minion's Death Rattle. No tribe or anything. At the time, it was really, 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 really powerful. You would play it in cube decks once we hit Kobolds and Catacombs. You played it with Devilsaur Egg in Ungoro. It's just really good. Triggering Death Rattles on a body, really strong. Although Playdead would trigger Death Rattles just for 1 mana spell, Terror Scale Stalker was still a better card because you also got that body when you did it, even for, +2 mana. Like, yeah, Playdead's a great card and all that, don't get me wrong, Playdead sees more play now, but Terror Scale Stalker, I feel like this card has potential in the future, just because, like, if we got, like, a good 1-drop that has a really good Death Rattle, maybe Terror Scale Stalker could, like, do something, but we really have not. They're not. The 1-drop Death Rattles are really, really bad on average. Like, even 2-drops have significantly better Death Rattles. But it is what it is. Then we get to Mage. So Open the Waygate was so degenerately strong that it was nerfed twice, and it caused the direct nerf of another card, which still hasn't been reverted, by the way. Grey Sage Parrot, still not reverted. It was nerfed only specifically because of Time Warp, not reverted. So dumb. So fucking stupid. I don't want to talk about the quests that much anymore, but everyone and their mother knows what Time Warp is. It's a 5 mana spell that just reads, take an extra turn. It used to not have a restriction, but now you can only do it once per game. Thank God. And it's still good. It's still a good card, by the way. Still a good card. There's just no functional way this card will not break, or will not be strong again at some point. Because it already was. It already was strong again. And then they nerfed Apprentice again. And guess what? It's still going to be strong again at some point. Because the fundamental issue is that taking an extra turn is just too strong. So then we have Pyros. It is a 2 mana 2/2 elemental it's Elemental Beast now, at the time it's Elemental, that would give you a 6 mana 6/6 and then a 10 mana 10/10 elemental that the 6/6 would have a Death Rattle to give you a 6/6 and then or 10/10, etc. It was buffed to the 6/6 costs 4 and the 10/10 costs 8, if I remember correctly now. But it's not that big of a deal. Pyros has been unplayable for years. It was kind of playable during like Kobolds and Catacombs and Witchwood Big Spell Hunter. When that was a thing, Big Spell Shot. Big Spell Mage. I can't talk right now, I'm just losing my mind. The Big Spell Mage was pretty fun. I'm going to be honest, you play Dragoncaller Alana, which was a 9 mana 5/5 that read Battlecry for each spell that you've cast this game that costs 5 or more, summon a 5/5 dragon. And that was really good for the time. Back in the day, one big giant board was like what you would get from these decks. You wouldn't have Razzle Dazzler, which is a 6 mana card that does the same fucking thing as a Rana with an easier condition. Or a Lana with an easier condition. Yeah. So, you didn't have that, and then you didn't... it's crazy. It's just crazy. Then we have Meteor. So, the aforementioned big spell mage used to run Meteor. 6 mana fire spell. Wasn't fire at the time, of course. Deal 15 damage to a minion and 4 damage to adjacent ones. This was a really, really powerful removal spell at the time. We used to go tall. We used to go tall and only run play one or two minions a turn back in the day. You didn't have ultra wide, ultra aggressive, hyper aggro boards. Your aggro boards would play like 3 minions by turn 3. And that's how we liked it. I hate Swarm. I hate Swarm so much. It's not fun to play against. It's not fun to play. I hate Swarm. I hate it. Meteor specifically always deals enough damage to kill Ultrasaur. Even after Ultrasaur was buffed, it always deals lethal damage, which is really, really funny. Then, lastly, we have Arcanologist. So, Arcanologist is a 2-mana 2/3 that reads Battlecry, draw a secret. This card has seen so much play over the years. Tutoring Secrets is incredibly powerful, not only in Secret Mage, but it saw play in a lot of different decks. Before there was Ancient Mysteries, there was Arcanologist as your way to tutor Ice Block. Of course, I mean, Ancient Mysteries is significantly better than Arcanologist now, but... Arcanologist saw play in Secret Mage for a super long time. It only really fell off during, like, Nathria, because Nathria introduced so many more Secret Synergy cards at the time. But Arcanologist, I mean, it was basically a playable, strong 2-drop for, what, like 5 years, 6 years? Drawing Secrets is incredibly powerful, obviously. I mean, Hunter didn't have a way to tutor Secrets until, like, 2021 and 2023, right? So for Mage to get this in 2017, pretty clear how obviously strong it would be. Mage had a lot of powerful secrets. Explosive Runes came out in... oh god, I think it was Kobolds and Catacombs? I might be wrong on that. Still, you had a lot of powerful secrets during this era of Hearthstone. Arcanologist, just great card. Has seen so much play over the years, and only recently has stopped being playable, which is a bit sad, but you know, it's still, I mean, if you're playing like a Reno Mage, a Reno Secret Mage, sometimes people run Arcanologist because you still need more ways to tutor, but Reno Secret Mage has been bad for a long time. It used to be pretty good, but yeah. Then we have Paladin. So, the last Kaleidosaur sucks. It's one of the worst quests, probably is the worst quest. It's cast 5 spells on your minions, reward Galvadon. Galvadon's a 5-mana 8/8, Battlecry, adapt 5 times. Adapting is random, and yeah, you can get like Wind Fury and then +3 attacks and then stealth, and then yeah, maybe your Galvadon's really good then, but if you don't get something like that, well, it's really, 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 really bad. Galvadon's so terrible. It's just... oh boy, it's something, alright. It really is. Sunkeeper Tarim. Sunkeeper Tarim is a 3-mana 3/7 with Taunt. Battlecry, set all other minions attack and health to 3. This is ultra powerful for its time in Standard. It was so unbelievably strong. You would have like your own board of like small-ish minions, and then you would buff them up to 3/3, and that was really powerful. You would effectively like debuff your opponent's entire board as well. It was so strong, and it's partially caused the Discover nerf. Discover used to be better than it was now, if you could believe that. It used to have a weighted factor on class cards. I don't remember what it was specifically. I think it was 3-1. So if you played cards that would, generate Taunt, which we'll get to that card because it's a really iconic card. I'm not going to spoil it now because, some people like to hear about those stuff. It would discover a Taunt minion, so you would get Sunkeeper Terran very consistently. They nerfed this during, I want to say, Old Doom, when it was fully nerfed. But, like, Tarim definitely caused part of it. I might be wrong on when that nerf happened. It might have been while Tarim wasn't Standard. But Tarim was definitely a part of the reason why they did it. It was just consistently discovered off of that card. And it was way too good. It just was. Tarim was also really powerful in Even Paladin. And I've spoken before about how Even Paladin was one of the best decks in the entire game at one point. It was ultra powerful, and Tarim definitely helped. You know, when you had a bunch of 1/1s from just hero powering every other turn, you would love to get the Tarim. And in Odd Paladin, you could discover Tarim because that taunt minion was 3 cost, and it would be a really powerful buff to your wide board from your hero powers. Tarim has just been really strong. I think if this card were like 5 mana, it would probably actually be playable in Wild today at 5. Definitely at 4. No question at 4, but at 5, it would probably be playable in Odd Paladin as just like another way to buff your recruits and just as a good way to shut down your opponent's board. Tarim is a really fun card, and it's really like people love this card. It also has an iconic voice line. It goes like, "Ungoro belongs to the Titans," which is super iconic. Then we have Vine Cleaver. So Vine Cleaver was 7 mana at the time. It was buffed to 6 in Twist, but it was 7 mana at the time. It was just good enough for Odd Paladin for, I think, during Witchwood, and I'm not sure if it was for the rest of the time Odd Paladin was standard, but I know it was playable during Witchwood. It was just a decent enough weapon. 7 mana 4/3 weapon after your hero attack, summon 2 1/1 Sylvan recruits when you would love to have like a lot more recruits so you could buff them and all this stuff. It was just good enough. It's one of those like 30th cards that kind of existed in a lower power level time of the game, and you know what? That's better than most cards. Being just good enough in a deck because the power level is lower, better than most cards can ever say about themselves. Let's be clear for a second. Then we have Spike Ridge Steed. Spike Ridge Steed, again, 6 mana, give a minion +2/+6, and taunt. When it dies, summon a 2/6 Stegodon. That's a beast. That has taunt, 2/6, etc. Spike Ridge Steed was incredibly powerful for its time. It was super high value. You had like Lanessa, or no? Was it Lanessa? I think it was Lanessa. You had Lanessa during Kobolds and Catacombs that would love to be hit by Spike Ridge Steed because it would replay all spells that you cast on friendly minions on that minion. So if you played Spike Ridge Steed and then you would play like Lanessa, I think it's Lanessa, I may be wrong, but you would play Lanessa and then it would replay your Spike Ridge Steeds, and then you get a bunch of minions. Spike Ridge Steed was so powerful because not only was it a good buff, +2/+6 is... It's the same as Blessing of Kings, but it's a little bit better statted, and it gives taunt. And it gives you value because it leaves behind a 2/6 that you can then also buff. That also has taunt, so it's just really powerful into like aggro. Spike Ridge Steed was really good. I think it even was playable in even Paladin Spike Ridge Steed itself. So that says, again, a lot about how powerful this card was. Spike Ridge Steed nowadays is just not good. We have... so in... What was it? It was United and Stormwind. They released the mount cards. They had like Ramming Mount and Hunter. They had... there's the Dreadstein Mount in Warlock. There's the Ramming Mount. There's Kodo Mount in Druid. Shaman had like Raptor Mount, and Paladin had the Divine Shield Mount. I don't think there were any more. I think there were only 5 mounts. No. Priest had Elec Mount, which Elec Mount is 7 mana, give a minion +4/+7, summon a 4/7 with taunt, compared to Spike Ridge Steed. Yeah, Spike Ridge Steed came out like 5 years, or 4 years before, but like Spike Ridge Steed could really go to like 5 mana, maybe even 4, and be fine in Wild. Okay, well, in Wild it would definitely be fine at 4, but like even as a core set card, you could probably put it at like 4 mana. It would be like it would be strong, don't get me wrong, but it definitely could go to the core set as like a 4 mana card, like if you really want to push Paladin, which I don't know why you would. Paladin's been like one of the best classes in the game for the last like 2 or 3 years, but you know, that's fine. I like Spike Ridge Steed. It's just a fun card. I don't know. It's just a fun card to play with. I like it. I wish that something like it would have like come back. Elec Mount was really close. Elec Mount was also really strong, so maybe I'm just coping and should one Elec Mount buff rather than a Spike Ridge Steed buff. Then we have Priest. So Priest has Awaken the Makers, and Awaken the Makers was kind of like not that great. It was like okay for its time, but it really was like something actually worthwhile playing when Boomsday came out. You could make any million arguments like, oh, you know, it wasn't that bad during the Ungoro and during, you know, Knights of the First and Throne, during Calls of Catacombs and Witchwood. It wasn't like, it probably, I'm gonna be honest, I don't even remember this card seeing play. Like, I don't think I saw this card a single fucking time during that era, like, aside from people just, like, dicking around. But once Doomsday came out, we had Dead Ringer. Dead Ringer is a 2-mana, 2/1 mech that reads Death Rattle, draw a Death Rattle minion. Unsurprisingly, that made it really good with Awaken the Makers. And Awaken the Makers did see some real play. It's summon 6 Death Rattle minions, reward Amara, Warden of Hope. Amara is a 5-mana 8/8 with Taunt that sets, as Battlecry, set your hero's health to 40. You would bounce Amara, a bunch of times and try to just gain a lot of health and grind out your opponent. It was fun. I don't know, I liked Amara. Amara is a fun card. People still try and play Amara in Boar Priest nowadays, but like, Boar Priest doesn't ever really play it. If you're actually playing Boar Priest and you actually summon 6 Death Rattle minions, you've probably won the game anyway, you know? So Amara is just like kind of not, or like Awaken Maker is just not really that useful. I'm gonna be honest with you. Then we have Lyra the Sun Shard, 4-mana 3/5 elemental. Or whenever you cast a spell, add a random priest spell to your hand. It's never been that good. So the idea is that you would play it with Radiant Elemental and you'd like have like a bunch of like discounts. So you play all these spells and you play all these priest spells and you do a lot of junk and you play so many spells and you just get so much value. And it never really worked. Like, yeah, people tried to make it work and like people would do meme stuff with it, but it was really never that great. Just never really. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Random priest spells are pretty bad. You could hit like Mind Control, which was 10 mana at the time, and be like, damn, dude, my entire chain of spells just got fucked. It doesn't matter if you have like a Radiant when it's 10 goddamn mana. Lyra is just not great. I mean, there's not much more to say about it. It's just not a good card. Curious Glimmerroot is actually a really funny card. I think at the time it was a 3/3. It's a 3/4 now. It's just Battlecry, look at 3 cards, guess which one started in your opponent's deck, and to get a copy of it. That's it. Very simple, but it's just more interactive than cards like Crystalline Oracle. Crystalline Oracle is a 1-mana 1/1 Death Rattle, get a copy of a random card from your opponent's deck, but that also came out in this expansion. But Curious Glimmerroot is just fun. It has a great voice line. It goes like, he has like a fun animation where he shuffles up the cards. It's just a really fun card. I think this card could be like 1 mana in today's game, just like a 1-mana 1/2, and it would be completely fair because we have Psychic Conjurer, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that. I'm probably wrong about that. It's the 1-mana 1/2 undead that has Battlecry, get a copy of a random card from your opponent's deck. So why couldn't Curious Glimmerroot just exist as like a 1-drop? I don't really know why. They buffed it in the Un'Goro twist, so why couldn't they have buffed it to like relevancy? It's a fun card. It's significantly more fun than Psychic Conjurer is. So I don't really get why it couldn't. Then we have Shadow Visions. So for a long time, Shadow Visions was like one of the best like spell tutors in the entire game, bar none. Like just nothing else was really even close. Discover a copy of a spell in your deck was also really nice because it's copy, so you could get like more copies of it, like good cards. It saw play in like Big Priest, Reno Priest ran it. Every Priest deck ran this card basically for like a long time. Shadow Priest ran it for basically up until like March of the Lich King when March of the Lich King mini set when Mindseer came out. That's when they stopped running that card. So it saw a lot of play for a long time. Very powerful. Hunter has like a version of this where it's like, oh god, what's it called? Arcane Quiver, where it's 2 mana, just discover a spell from your deck. If it's arcane, give it +1 spell damage. And like they've tried to replicate this effect a lot of times to somewhat success. They had Embrace the Shadows, which is 2 mana, discover a spell from your deck, and it's just good. I don't know. There was like I forget what era of Hearthstone this was, but there was a Shadow Priest where you'd play like Anduin, or not Shadow Priest, a Dragon Priest, where you'd play like Anduin. It probably was during like KNC, right? Because it was Dragon Priest, so it would have been using like the Mean Streets cards, like oh god, what's it called? Like Draconic is that what it's called? Draconic Informant? I don't remember what it's called. It was the 5-mana 5/6 dragon that had Battlecry. Just like if you're holding a dragon, discover a card from your opponent's deck. I forget what it's called. It's from like Gadget Sand. You had like a Dragon Priest that would play like Shadow Reaper Anduin. Then you would play like Shadow Visions to get as many copies of Mind Blast as you could. So then you would play like Anduin, Mind Blast, like ping, Mind Blast, ping, Mind Blast, ping, Mind Blast, and that's how you'd win the game. You would get a lot of value from your dragons, you would fight for board with your dragons, you would discover cards from your dragons, then you would just get as many Mind Blasts as possible using Shadow Visions and like Anduin, then you would just ping Mind Blast, and that's how you would win. And it was really fun. It was a really fun deck. That's all I can say. Then we have Rogue. So although Caverns Below wasn't that strong, like, empirically, it was one of the most polarizing cards ever. Like, overall, its stats as a card weren't that good, especially not to warrant being nerfed twice, right? It was nerfed, so what it is play 4 minions with the same name, reward Crystal Cove. Crystal Cove is a 5-mana spell that sets all your minions to 5/5 for the rest of the game. It was nerfed to play 5 minions, and then it was nerfed, I don't know if the order, I'm be real right now, I don't remember the order, but it was also nerfed to make them 4/4 instead of 5/5s. This was eventually reverted, obviously, and, you know, it saw a little bit of play in Wild once it was reverted. It wasn't great. It has picked up more and more play as like overall every few expansions when more support comes out. It probably was at its best ever, if you ask me, in my opinion, during Titans, when Titans came out, because of Spark Bots. Spark Bots were really, really strong because they would be 5/5s. They all had Magnetic, which would count, and they had Stealth or Wind Fury as options. So if you got a Stealth Spark Bot, then that was a 5/5, so Stealth. You could stealth it through your next turn, because, yeah, then it would be able to attack. You could give it another Spark Bot to make it a 10/10. Then if you had a Wind Fury Spark Bot as your third Spark Bot, or, second, I guess, it would be a 15/15 with Wind Fury that would kill your opponent. And it was fucking hilarious. I'm going to be honest, I personally think that that's the strongest version of this deck that has ever existed, even better than it was when it was in Ungoro when it got nerfed, because it wasn't that good in Ungoro. Like, it was a fine deck, it was pretty powerful, but, like, again, like I'm saying, not double nerf worthy. It's just, it had obscenely polarizing matchups. If you played a slow deck, it just could not win. If you played an aggro deck, well, you couldn't beat the aggro decks, but it just could not lose to slow decks. So it got double nerfed because people just hated playing against it. Makes sense. Sherazin Corpse Flower is a really fun card, in my opinion, because it combines, like, Miracle-style decks with wanting to have, like, a value engine. You play Sherazin, it gets to bump, or it just gets to go face, and then it never goes away, as long as it's not silenced. So as long as you're able to repeatedly, like, resummon it, you just have this 6/3 that never goes away and gets to attack your opponent over and over again. They have to deal with over and over again. So it was just, like, very powerful. It was really fun to play. I remember playing with Sherazin. It was just a fun card. It wasn't crazy because it fell off like right after Ungoro, but it was still pretty good for its time. So this is worth talking about, but there's not much more to say because it hasn't really been playable ever since. So yeah, Razor Petal Volley, 2-mana nature spell that has add 2 Razor Petals to your hand that deal 2 damage. It was 1 damage at the time, and it was really good in Malygos Rogue. Malygos Rogue needed ways to deal damage, so it would run cards like Razor Petal Volley as a way to benefit from Malygos. That's it. That's the only use case for Razor Petal Volley. Malygos Rogue was pretty good during this era of Hearthstone, don't get me wrong, but that's it for Razor Petal Volley. I didn't list off Sherazin stats. It's 4-mana, 6/3, Death Rattle, go dormant, play 4 cards, and turn revive this minion. Sorry for Sherazin. Then lastly, we have Vile Spine Slayer. 5-mana, 3/4, combo, destroy minion. Super simple. This card is really iconic because it was in Odd Rogue for a long, long time. And Odd Rogue was a super iconic deck. It was very powerful in both formats. It was one of the best decks in the game for a long time in both formats. It's just... Odd Rogue is such a fan favorite. The whole idea is you play your 1-drop, it doesn't matter what it was really. Then you would hero power your 2-mana weapon, then you would have then you play a 3-drop and you were happy. That's Odd Rogue. You play a 1-drop, hero power, you play a 3-drop. What a deck. Such an iconic deck, and it was so simple. And it was just really good at going face because its 1-drops were pretty good. Having a 2/2 weapon was really good for fighting for board, and then your 3/3 would typically be either like Volpera Scoundrel at one point, or at the beginning, it was Henchclan Thug, which was 3/3 after your attacks gain +1/+1. So you just play a 3-mana 4/4, and that was it. That's what Hearthstone used to be, by the way. That used to be one of the best decks in Hearthstone. You'd play like Buccaneer on 1, you would Hero Power on 2, and then you'd play Hench Clan Thug on 3. That was one of the best decks in Hearthstone. How are we in the game that we have now compared to that? It's crazy. Then we have Shaman. So Unite the Murloc sucks. It's bad. I'm going to be honest with you. It's bad. It only gets worse as time goes on as well, because as time goes on, they would print better and better Murlocs that made you not want to run Unite the Murlocs, because you got things like Underbelly Angler, which is 2 mana 2/3. After you play a Murloc, get a random Murloc. They print things like Howdy Finn, which is, if your hand has 3 or less cards, fill it with Murlocs until you have 3 cards or something like that. I don't remember the exact wording, but it's like you can't have less than 3 cards in hand, because if you do, it'll give you Murlocs to fill those. So that's kind of it. Which is really strong, actually, because if you have an empty hand, you play Howdy Finn, you just got 3 Murlocs. It's just pretty good. But Unite the Murlocs is, 1 mana quest, summon 8 Murlocs, reward Megafin. Megafin is 5 mana 8/8. That reads Battlecry, fill your hand with random Murlocs. Not that good. It really isn't. You have to skip your turn 1 to play a value quest that is just worse than Murlocs you can hard run. Yeah. Unite the Murlocs is terrible. It's so bad. It's always been bad. It's just come on, man. Murlocs are so bad. Why have Murlocs been so bad for so long? Kalamos, Primal Lord. If you played an elemental last turn, cast an elemental invocation, 7 mana 7/7. The invocations are like, oh god, it's like fill your board with 1/1s, deal 2 damage to all enemies, deal 6 damage to the enemy hero, and like heal 2 health to all friendly. I don't remember the invocations. Who cares? Kalamos is terrible. It's such a terrible card. It's just bad. Like, I'm sorry. Some cards, I don't even care enough to remember what they do fully, because they're just bad cards and I'll never play them once in my entire life. Like, I know what Kalamos does. Don't get me wrong. If you showed me an image, I'd be like, oh, it doesn't have that effect, because I know what the effects are, but like, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head its exact effects. It's just terrible. It's always been bad. It's always been completely unplayable. It's something, alright. It really is something. Tidal Surge. So Tidal Surge was originally 4 mana lifesteal, deal 4 damage to a minion. It was then buffed to 3 mana, deal 4 damage. Then it was buffed from 3 mana, deal 5 damage. Still hasn't been that great of a card. Still, even after multiple buffs, hasn't been that great of a card. They printed Dehydrate, which is 3 mana, quick draw, costs 1, deal 4 damage, or lifesteal, deal 4 damage to a minion. So, if you don't know what quick draw is, it's when that card first enters your hand, it will have its effect. So if you play ETC and have Dehydrate in it, it will instantly always cost 1. Tidal Surge is +1 damage for not having the ability to cost 1. It's not great. I want to talk about Tidal Surge because it's very rare that you see a card get double buffed and it's just not that good. Like, usually if a card gets double buffed, it's like, maybe the first buff wasn't enough, but the second buff, yeah, it's probably playable, right? But not with Tidal Surge. It's just not that good. If you really want to play lifesteal cards in Shaman, you want to play like Altered Chord, which is the 5 mana lifesteal, deal 6 damage, costs 3 less if you're overloaded, I think I want to say. It might be 4, I'm pretty sure it's 3. But that card, pretty good in overload decks, genuinely. Or the aforementioned Dehydrate. Volcano, 5 mana, fire spell. Deal 15 damage, randomly split among all minions, overload 1. At the time, this was an obscenely powerful removal card. Like, genuinely, it was so strong. And you have to remember, this is an era when Lightning Storm would still overload you for 2. Or when Elemental Destruction would overload you for 5, for dealing 4 to 5 damage to all minions. Volcano only overloaded you for 1, which, at the time was insane. It dealt 15 damage, which, pretty good for 5 mana. Oh, you typically be able to clear a board after you did some bumping for 5 mana. It was very strong. Volcano's just a good card. It saw a lot of play for a long time. Like its entire time in Standard, it saw play. I'm blanking if it really ever saw play in Wild, I'm going to be honest with you. But it's just, it's a nice card. It does its job. And then it was remade into Baking Soda Volcano, which is 4 mana. If you don't know Baking Soda Volcano, holy shit, dude. 4 mana, deal 10 damage, randomly split amongst all minions, overload 1. with lifesteal. Holy shit, the power creep, dude, on Baking. It's insane. It's really insane to consider that Tidal Surge was 4 mana, deal 4 with lifesteal, and Volcano's 5 mana, deal 15 without lifesteal. Then they Baking Soda Volcano and Whispering Workshop. Insane. Crazy, because that card is nuts. Baking Soda Volcano is a disgusting card. Then we have Warlock. So Warlock's terrible, obviously, but Warlock's Ungoro set was really bad. Like, if you actually take a look at it, there's only like 1 or 2 cards that are actually playable at all. At all. It was terrible. Terrible set. Sorry, I yawned. Recording late. So we have the quest, Lakari Sacrifice. Lakari Sacrifice is horrible. Horrible quest. It's quest, discard 6 cards. Terrible. Reward, Nether Portal. So, the Nether Portal is a 5 mana spell that would summon a portal, which was just like an inactive space, just took up space on your board for the rest of the game. It's like what Sargeras does, but significantly worse. And it would just summon 3/2s at the end of your turn. Summon 2 3/2s at the end of your turn. That was it. Yeah, so I've said this a million times that not only does Discard Warlock never really take off in Standard, but Discard Warlock is only good in Wild because of the fact that it's played like as an aggro deck that just has like a super low curve because you're discarding your high cost cards and then has like infinite card draw. That's why Discard Warlock is good. Lakari Sacrifice aims to make Discard Warlock a value deck. Let's put on our thinking caps real fast. I want to play a value deck where I'm discarding my value cards. Put on our thinking caps real fast. How does that make sense? It obviously doesn't. Obviously does not work. Obviously terrible. Then, you have Clutch Mother Zavis. 2 mana, 2/2, Beast. Whenever you discard this, give it +2/+2 and return it to your hand. These cards don't actually work that well together. Although they technically synergize, that means you have to be playing 2 shit cards instead of only 1 shit card. So bad. It's just unbelievable. Then, lastly, for the discard package that I'm talking about, we have Cruel Dynamancer. Was originally 6 mana, now it's 5. 5 mana, 5/5, Death Rattle, summon a random minion you've discarded this game. On its own, that doesn't sound like anything crazy or anything special at all, but if Dynamancer is your only discarded card, it will resummon another Dynamancer, which resummons another Dynamancer. So you have infinite 5/5s. If you can get more copies of it, or if you can like have like a Baron or an Umbra, or the new, the new Warlock Death Knight Taurus, that card, you can, double trigger the death rattles, and you can just have more and more and more Dynomancers. And it's fun. It is really fun. There are decks. There's a death rattle Warlock that plays like for like this Dynomancer stuff that uses like Eliza to buff them. It's not great, don't get me wrong. If you look up Reno Jackson, I think it's _HS or just HS on Twitter. Try one of them. He posted a list about this a while back, like earlier when the expansion dropped. It's really fun to play. You should definitely check it out. But yeah, Dynamancer, obviously it's not good. Like, come on. I'm not going to put like actual good cards on the slide when I'm talking about the Warlock cards being terrible. The Warlock cards sucked. Except for Blood Bloom. So Blood Bloom was originally 2 mana. The next spell you cast this turn costs health instead of mana. So when Darkest Hour came out in Rise of Shadows, I want to say, it was destroy all minions, or destroy all friendly minions, replace them with minions in your deck. So you'd play like things like, I don't even know, you'd play like Fiendish Circle, which was the 4 mana spell to get 4 1/1 imps and stuff like that, right? Like, kind of not that great cards, just to summon as many tokens as possible. Then you play Blood Bloom, Darkest Hour, and you would have like a bunch of giant minions from your deck, and it was really strong, so it got nerfed. Blood Bloom went from 2 to 4 mana, and then it kind of killed that. It indirectly also killed Mecha'thun Warlock, because Mecha'thun Warlock relied on 2 mana Blood Bloom. You would discount your Mecha'thun with Galvanizers to cost 8, then you would play Blood Bloom and Cataclysm. Yep, that was it. that was the deck. Yeah, It was great. I love stupid Hearthstone decks. I love them so much. There's so many stupid decks that didn't like feel like they should never have worked, that kind of were playable because of like weird interactions, and I love it. I love this game sometimes. But yeah, Bloodbloom, it has most recently seen play in Wheel Warlock because, well, you want to play your Wheel of Death as early as possible because it would win you the game when it was played. So you'd play Bloodbloom in that deck. Since it's a shadow spell, you could tutor it with your... Oh god, I don't remember what it's called. It's 3-mana 3/3 that had like... that would draw you a shadow spell, so you would tutor it, and then you would tutor Wheel, because Wheel was also a shadow spell, and it was really good. Wheel Warlock was really good. Then, lastly, but not least, we have Warrior. So Warrior has Fireplume's Heart. Play 7 taunt minions, get Sulphurous, sorry. Sulphurous is a 3-mana 4/2 weapon that has Battlecry. Replace your hero power with Die Insect, and that's, 2 mana, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. Taunt Warrior was actually pretty good during Ungoro. Genuinely, it saw a lot of play. Fireplume's Heart was actually a good card during this time. It fell off significantly as time went on, like, very hard. It just wasn't worth playing. Taunt Warrior just kind of sucked. It wasn't that worth it. Yeah, it's a bit awkward. In current year, though, you can play it with Sing-Along Buddy and Garrison Commander to deal 32 damage to your opponent for 8 mana. It's not good. I did not say it was good, but it is something you can do. It's random, so that is an issue, but it's really, 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 really funny to do. Play Taunt Warrior, have Garrison Commander, Sing-Along Buddy, and then just deal 32 damage to your opponent. They'll never expect it. It's really fucking funny. Then we have King Mosh. King Mosh is 7 mana, 9/7 beast. Battlecry, destroy all damage minions. Yeah. Bad card. Terrible card. Very obviously a terrible card. You play Whirlwind, then you play King Mosh. You have an 8 mana, 9/7, destroy all minions. Broken, dude. Broken. Imbalanced. It's so bad. It's just terrible. I mean, like, there's not really any way you could fix King Mosh without making it, like, significantly cheaper. If you wanted King Mosh to be playable in today's game, it'd have to be, like, a 5 mana fucking 7/7 or some shit. And they're never going to do something like that. So, yeah. Corner Sentry. Corner Sentry is a 2 mana 3/6 with Taunt, Battlecry, summon 3 1/1 Raptors for your opponent. This was pretty good, because if you were running Whirlwind effects, it would just be a 2 mana 2/5 with Taunt, no downside. But the main use of this card was when Dry Whisker Armor was printed in Kobolds and Catacombs. You would just combine it. You would play Corner Sentry, Whisker Armor, and then, wow, you just gained a lot of armor, and you have a 2/6 Taunt. Dry Whisker Armor, if you don't know, is a 2 mana 2/2 with Battlecry, gain 2 armor for each enemy minion. So you would gain 6 armor, and it was worth it, You would combine them together. Like, if your opponent had, like, a kind of wide board, you could set it so they finally had, like, or not finally, so they would have 7 minions for your Dry Whisker Armor, and that was just pretty good. People have played Cornered Sentry with Bran in Wild. It's not good. Don't do it. To then have Odin. Yeah, you hear me out. So you have Odin in play and Bran. So you play Cornered Sentry plus Dry Whisker Armor to fill up their entire board and then to gain armor for it. So if they had 7 minions on board, instead of gaining 14, you'd gain 28 armor from your Dry Whisker Armor because it's doubled. And you would deal 28 damage to your opponent's face because you're fucking Odin. And that... The Corner Sentry wasn't good in like that kind of deck, but still Dry Whisker Armor was a good card. Dry Whisker Armor is a great card. I love that card. It's free. It is a fun card to play with. I'm gonna be honest. It's thematically very cool. It's a strong card. It makes a lot of sense existing. But I digress. Corner Sentry, it's never been that great. I'm gonna be honest with you, except for that one interaction. You would still play it in like as a taunt, like in Taunt Warrior stuff like that, but I don't know. It feels like one of those cards that, like, if it were a neutral card, would probably be so much better in other classes because, like, they could make more use of it. But it is what it is. Currently, you can use Cornered Sentry in the Sulthuray's Punch card combo, and it's not great, but you could do it if you wanted to, if you're playing, like, a slow version of that deck. But if you're playing, like, the full skipper version, you probably just don't want to. It's probably just not worth it. Then last, but certainly not least, especially on this page, we have Direhorn Hatchling. 5 mana, 4/6, Taunt, Beast. I don't remember what the stats of the original minion was. It was buffed, so you just shuffle an 8/12 Direhorn in your deck. One second. It was originally a 6/9 Direhorn with Taunt into your deck. I think it was also 5 mana. So this card was really powerful. Not only was it just a fine body that would give you a good card, but it staved off fatigue. And, well, when you're playing Warrior and you don't have any win conditions, fatigue is very important to stave off. Direhorn Hatchling is... How do I word this? It's the better of the two Hatchlings, because Raptor Hatchling also came out in this expansion. It was a 1 mana 2/1 that would shuffle a 1 mana 4/3 at the time. Now it's 4/5 into your deck. Anyway, so it was better than Raptor Hatchling by a significant margin, even though it wasn't cheaper, right? It wasn't nearly as cheap. However, because Raptor Hatchling could come off of Deathstalker Rexar, that's why you could have Deathstalker Rexar just beat like these slow warrior decks that were running Direhorn Hatchling, because, well, it didn't matter if you were staving off your fatigue, if so were they, and they were doing it better than you. It's really funny to think about. I didn't put Raptor Hatchling on the Warrior or the Hunter slide because I had better cards that were more interesting to talk about, but I want to talk about it here at the Direhorn Hatchling. Direhorn Hatchling was a great card. Stopping or like shutting down fatigue by like 2 turns did matter a lot. It would put you ahead, like it was genuinely a very powerful effect. But it's so crazy that just because of Deathstalker Rexar, that alone is what made Raptor Hatchling better. It's just so crazy. Neutrals. I don't have anything written for these ones. I'm just going to, like, rapid fire them because there's so many. Firefly was a staple 1-drop that saw play its entire time in Standard. It's seeing play in Standard again in Elemental decks. It saw play in Wild for a little bit just because it's so strong as a 1-drop. 1 mana 1/2, Battlecry, or Elemental, Battlecry, add a 1/2 Elemental to your hand. That was it. Just gave you a lot of bodies, gave you a lot of tokens that you could do a lot of stuff with. It's just really strong. Glacial Shard has been one of the best 1-drops ever, like, for a long time. It's just 1 mana 2/1, Battlecry, freeze an enemy. Wow, who could have guessed that that would be a strong effect? You freeze minions that would make it so, like, you can freeze to help in trading. You can freeze your opponent's face to make them not be able to attack with a weapon. You can freeze to prevent from taking a lot of damage. It's just really, really good. Ultrasaur is a 10 mana 7/14 beast with no text. That's it. I just had to bring it up. That was it. Devilsaur Egg, 3 mana 0/3 with Death Rattle, summon a 5/5 Devilsaur. This is actually really strong. Egg Hunter was very powerful at one point. Of course, you have your Terra Scale Stalker, stuff like that. It was just good. What more do you say? You would trigger the Devilsaur Egg Death Rattle with like Play Dead or with Stalker, and that was just good. Getting a 5/5, just pretty damn good. Vicious Fledgling. This is like one of those like super iconic, really strong minions from its era. So it would 3 mana 3/3 beast. After this minion attacks a hero, adapt. So if you would attack your enemy hero, you could adapt into all the options. But if you hit Wind Fury, you could attack again to adapt again. This card was so unbelievably strong if you hit Wind Fury, because then if you hit like Stealth, damn dude, you're shit out of luck. You can't clear that. If you didn't hit Wind Fury or didn't hit Stealth, damn. You just played like a 3 mana 3/3. That doesn't really do much. It was really, really strong. Like genuinely a super strong card for its time. It got worse as time goes on, obviously, but it still saw play in like odd decks, like odd rogue when it first came out. It kind of fell off like past Witchwood, but it still saw play in like Witchwood. It's just really strong. It was ultra high roll card that like just won you the game on the spot sometimes. Genuinely, it would just win you the game on the spot sometimes. Really strong. Galaka Crawler was printed because of, well, Pirate Warrior, specifically. That's why they printed Galaka Crawler. Pirate Warrior was just really strong in Gadget Stand, so they had to print a way to make pirates worse. 2 mana, 2/3 beast, Battlecry, destroy beast, and gain +1/+1. That's it. That's it. Then we have Stonehill Defender, 3 mana, 1/5, taunt. I think it was a 1/4 at the time, actually. Taunt, Battlecry, discover a taunt minion. This is the card I was talking about with Tarim. Although it's a neutral card, so other classes could make use of it. Paladin is what really was too strong with it for, like, the discover options reasons. Because, well, it would discover a taunt minion. There aren't that many taunt minions in the game, so if you weighed it 3-1, you would get Tarim very consistently. Almost every game, you would get at least one Tarim from your Stonehill Defenders. It's just really goddamn good. Primordial Drake, 8 mana, 4/8, Dragon, Taunt, Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all other minions. Dragon Druid at one point was really, or not, yeah, it was really, really good. but it was more Taunt Druid than Dragon Druid. You would play Master Oakheart, and Master Oakheart is a 9-mana 3/3 that is Battlecry, summon a 1, 2, and 3 attack minion from your deck. I forget what the 1 attack would be, but the 2 attack would be Dragon Caller, which is a 9-mana 2/4 from Kobolds and Catacombs that would summon a random dragon from your deck at the end of your turn. Guess what? Primordial Drake was like that. You didn't even care about the Battlecry. It was just a 4/8 dragon with Taunt. And then the 3 would be Hadronox, and Hadronox, if you don't know somehow, 9-mana 3/7 beast, Death Rattle, resummon all your Taunt minions. I don't remember what the 1 attack was. I'm going to be honest with you. It obviously must not be that important if I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, Primordial Drake saw genuine meta play. It was a very powerful card in Taunt Druid once it came out in Kobolds and Catacombs. It was a pretty good removal card in like slower warrior decks, if I remember as well, just as a bomb, like a pretty good bomb minion that would like fight for board very efficiently, if I remember as well. I might be wrong, don't quote me on that, but it was primarily used in that Taunt Druid deck. Then we have Bittertide Hydra, 5-mana 8/8 beast. Whenever this minion takes damage, deal 3 damage to your enemy hero. You would just run this in like Hunter, that's just like a 5-mana fucking 8/8 beast, and you would just kill your opponent because it was a 5-mana 8/8 beast. Yeah, whenever it took damage, it would hurt a lot, and that did matter in like hyper aggro like matchups, or like aggro matchups, or if your opponent could like somehow defile it perfectly once Kobolds and Catacombs came out. That's kind of why this card didn't really stay as powerful past Ungoro. That's a big thing about Ungoro, is that like Ungoro was like a strong expansion, but it was so much weaker than Frozen Throne in KNC. Like so much weaker. That's insane. So Bittertide Hydra really, it had its small time in the sun, and that was about it. Then we have the neutral legendaries. So Hemet was amazing. Hemet was genuinely a super amazing card at thinning your deck. It was played in like Mechathune decks because it was just the best possible way to thin your deck. It is a 6-mana 6/6 Battlecry. Destroy all cards in your deck that cost 3 or less. So as long as you had combo pieces that costed 4 or more, Hemet would never destroy them, or if you drew them anyway, it wouldn't matter. Hemet was just so strong at its one specific role of thinning your deck for Mechathune, and that was about it. There wasn't much else that you want to thin your deck for, because most cards don't just win the game when you have no cards in your deck, like Hemet did, or like Mechathune does. At least the Trailblazer, 5-mana 5/5 Battlecry, shuffle sealed Ungoro pack in your deck. Then it was buffed to, if your deck has no duplicates, draw it. This was really good in Control Warriors, again, because it would stave off fatigue. It would give you a lot of value, because an Ungoro pack, basically, it would work as give you 5 random Ungoro cards. I think it was weighted differently than what an actual pack is, because like you would get legendaries more often than you would do from like an actual pack. But yeah, it was just a pretty good card. Again, one of those cards that, you know, saw a lot of play early on and then just fell off as time went on. Story of first expansion, like first expansion of the year story happens all the time. Spirit Singer Umbra. So Umbra was kind of okay in Cube Block and like Cube Hunter. It was kind of okay in those decks, and then nothing else. 4-mana 3/4. After you summon a Death Rattle minion, or after you summon a minion, trigger its Death Rattle. I don't know why it's not after you summon a Death Rattle minion, because if it doesn't have a Death Rattle, you can't trigger it anyway, so whatever. It's just like, it was pretty good in Cube Block and Cube Hunter and stuff like that, and that's about it. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. Like, it's been tried in like a billion different combos, and they just don't really work, and they're not consistent. Umbra's just like, it's really expensive. The effect is like super hard to make go off, even in today, like especially in today's game. Even back then, it wasn't really easy to make go off. It's just awkward, and it's understated. So yeah. Then we have Ozruk. I don't remember what its stats were before. It got into my head. I don't remember. But now it's an 8-mana 8/8 elemental taunt with gain +5 health for each elemental you played last turn. Not like in a row, like all the new elemental cards that would be like super strong, like if Ozruk was in a row. It's last turn. So it was fucking terrible. Why would you ever play Ozruk ever? It's just a bad card. I'm sorry. It's super slow. It doesn't have any protect. It doesn't have like elusive or anything. So it's just a giant minion that's like asking to be like removed. It's just terrible. So goddamn bad. I don't know what they were thinking with this card. I really don't. It's just like, Did they think that like elemental decks that have like really mediocre like mid games, because elemental decks had like way stronger early games, they have mid games. Like, look at those cards, like elemental cards, they just weren't that good. Do they think that this would like do anything? Like, I don't get it. Like, what did they think this card would do? It's whatever. It didn't do anything, so no point in talking about it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think down below. I have a video where I went a little bit more in depth on the quests. It's over here. And yeah, tell me what you think. Tell me down below. Do you guys like Un'Goro? I know Un'Goro is like a super fan favorite expansion. This entire year was like a giant fan favorite. People loved it. And I'd love to hear it down below. Tell me your favorite cards from Un'Goro. Did I not cover a card that you like? Did I cover cards you do like? Tell me all that kind of stuff down below. I love to hear it. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Shadows are rising again!
Darker than they've ever been.